Okay, I'm gonna bring up Kellie-Lynne as well. Um, our duty. Do you want to? You're welcome to share the screen and start with your presentation. If you want to start there, we have Melanie Bennett on our panel also, and Kellie-Lynne. I'm going to send you a, a click on link so you can come up and join us. And all right, here comes Kellie-Lynne. All right, our duty. You want to take
Thank
the
you.
floor first?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Shannon. Okay, so you're going to see the back end of this first, very quickly, and then we shall begin. Okay, so I am here today representing Our Duty Canada, and we are an international, we are a Canadian chapter of an international organization called Our Duty. There are also chapters in the US and in the UK. In Australia, and most recently in New Zealand. And we're a group of parents. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, for time's sake. But I just wanted to say one thing. This is a novel. So when I say this, the mass transgender ideation, which is a term that we use, and I'll get into it, of our children, is a novel situation. And so, as parents experiencing these things with our kids firsthand, we are among the experts. so, so parents, don't think that you don't have any expert opinion or thoughts on this, because you do. And then we also have an ever-growing and robust body of evidence that we use to and try to encourage others to use to try to push the needle politically in the education sphere and socially. Okay, and so who are we and what do we do? And I mentioned a little bit about that, but we are a support network for parents of children of any age experiencing transgender ideation. Everybody can hear me okay, yeah? Yep. Okay. Okay. And so it's important to note that um, just because a child turns 18, it doesn't mean that they're not susceptible to harm. So most of us have children struggling with distress around their sex, and grappling with the largely unrestricted social and medical options being presented to them in Canada. We believe that no child can consent to synthetic sex hormones and surgical procedures that may permanently damage their health and sexual function and fertility. And this includes puberty blockers, obviously. Yeah, yeah, we don't believe that the consent is there because these are experimental drugs and these are experimental surgeries being done on children and young people and vulnerable adults as well. Okay. My slide's a little slow. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why it's not advancing. Um, Hang on a sec. Okay, so now we're at this part. It says, we will do our part to end this, to help end this. But there were a few things in there, and I don't know why my slide didn't work properly. Um, but we are also a group with a unique perspective based on two major strengths. And one of those strengths is that we actually parent these kids who have distress around their sex. So we know that level very well. And we also, many of us have been into the clinics, and we've seen the process by which our kids are being advanced down a pathway to, quote, gender affirming care. So that's one strength, is that we're right on the ground level of this and seeing how it actually plays out. And second, we are a group of, excuse me, um, parents with qualifications and with an invested um, with much investment in finding the evidence and using that evidence to make some change. So we do have like mental health experts in our group. We have professors. We have legal people. We have a certain level of expertise and skill that allows us to help push this conversation forward. Okay, so I talked about transgender ideation. We are using that term instead of gender dysphoria, and we encourage others to use it as well. Gender dysphoria is like an activist manufactured term. So transgender ideation is the process by which an individual comes to contemplate or believe themselves to be transgender. This ideation involves the initial formation and the subsequent rumination on the notion that one's perceived sex differs from their sex. If not dismissed, these thoughts may become persistent, potentially leading to further psychological, social, and medical implications. And yeah, even the psychological is bad enough. There's a QR code and a URL at the bottom there if you want to look into the life cycle of transgender ideation. So we use this because it's not ideological language, save for the fact that the word transgender is in there, but this is what the children and young people are ruminating over. So, and it's also a more accurate description of what's really going on with kids. It doesn't suggest pathology, which gender dysphoria, I would suggest that a large part of its purpose is providing the access to drugs and surgeries through insurance companies and insurance coverage. And there is no checklist of sex stereotypes involved in using the term and transgender ideation. So there's that. Our parent support network is a huge part of what we do and who we are. So the same people who offer support seek support and facilitate support. That's kind of how our group works. It's sort of a circular thing. Sometimes really it's just about having someone to talk to who gets it. And the face-to-face and the in-person meetups are super important. It comes full circle. It's what I'm talking about, this circular kind of model. We all take turns picking each other up off the floor. And this is one of our several memes that we have out there. You are not the crazy one, and you are not alone. You are not alone has become kind of our unofficial, I guess, motto or a thing that we say to parents. It's very true. So if there are parents out there who are feeling like you're sitting at home alone, that you are the crazy one, and the whole world, hasn't really turned upside down in a matter of 5 years, and you need some support, reach out to us. I can't tell you how many times we've had parents come in saying, I thought I was the crazy one until I found more people who are, in agreement with me and see the same issues and problems that I see. So, all right. This is going to move a little quickly. Just some shots of the things that we have done and participated in. Some of the work that we do is on a global level, like with the Universal Periodic Review, some on a national level, like with the Million March. And with that, I mean, connection making, that's also part of what we do. But it's not all being out in the street, waving a sign and yelling a slogan. There are ways to opt out of the ideological teachings, particularly in schools. And we and the PRCOC can help with a few resources to facilitate that. Again, you see the image at the bottom there was something that we participated in at the global level. And then we also have gained intervener status in New Brunswick. Nadine was touched on something to do with that with policy 713. So we are participating in that, and that's good. We also make, I just mentioned about making connections. We do pair with other organizations and individuals at times to put out work letters, whatever, so that we're not recreating the wheel all the time, so that we're a wide push forward. So we're always happy to collaborate with others. So the CAS review has allowed us to get our letter writing game up recently, and same with the WPATH files. So this open letter that we wrote, many people in this room today signed this letter with us. There were over 250 signatures from organizations and individuals, and it has been sent now to well over 1,000 medical, mental health, political, education, and regulatory bodies and climbing. And I can't wait to hear from Mia about the WPATH files. It's been big. Same with the CAS review has been really big. Another of our memes we didn't know is a dying defense. And this is why it's so important to letter writing. I mean, it sounds so simple, but getting that information, we have a robust body of evidence now with the CAS review, with some other studies, with the WPATH files, getting it into the hands and in front of the people who need to see it is very important, so that they can't say that they didn't know. So our inoculation against gender ideology project, we've been creating PSA style videos, very short videos. The purpose is to get them out there into the reels on whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter, or X rather. And just in case somebody who needs to see it comes across it. So all of these videos are backed by research. This latest one was done in collaboration with KPSS Reality on Twitter, on X, sorry, I keep saying Twitter. And I'm gonna play it, it's very short. Hopefully you can hear it. And I didn't mention actually this video, or maybe I did. This video has been translated into French, Spanish, and now Japanese, which is really fantastic. Parenting through transgender ideation, rather, sorry. I'm just going to go through a few things that we might say to our kids that we might keep in mind while parenting through this. You can't fully understand what this ideology does to a child, a parent, and a family until it hits your home. And that does not mean that there aren't many people out there with great advice and whatnot. Parenting through transgender ideation is some of the most difficult parenting that most of us will ever do. That is so true. So I think it's really important to be kind to yourself as a parent. This is a novel situation, and it affects parents of varying backgrounds, beliefs, politics, parenting styles, family dynamics. It's not right-wing bigots. We'll just say that. We all share similar concerns, general social criticisms, and legal and political roadblocks because of this ideology. So it actually puts us at a deficit when we are parenting really hard. Parenting through transgender ideation produces ongoing PTSD. That was Miriam Grossman who spoke about that in her interview with Jordan Peterson. It's traumatic. There is a general camaraderie among parents whose children are struggling or have struggled with transgender ideation. We do have several parents of dysistic kids in our group, and they're still there supporting everyone else. And I think that is just so amazing. Friends for life. There are people who have found friends for life through this traumatic experience. Parents know their kids best. Parents have done their research and been down the rabbit holes, building an armor of data and information. And if you can share some of that data and information and armor with your kid, that's wonderful. Once you break the barrier and talk openly with your kid about this, it does get easier over time. And I know, and we understand that that is not always possible. I am the only person in your life willing to tell you the truth. These are some of the things we might say to our kids. If we can break that ice, it's okay for us to disagree and still love each other and have conversation and be a loving family. You are not that weak that hearing your name or being correctly sexed is going to break you. I think that's important to show kids resilience. I don't subscribe to this ideology, so I don't use its words and phrases, nor do I participate in its practices and protocols. I think that's fair to say to anybody. Parents are the most invested in the health and well-being of their children. That is absolutely true. It's not the teacher, it's not the therapist, it's not the doctors, the endocrinologist, like kind of referring back to that video. None of those people, aside from the parent in the beginning, are as invested in the health and well-being of your child. And so to wrap up, here are a few ways that you can contact us. We're on X and Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, our little budding YouTube channel. And you can always email us. Yeah, and thank you for your support. And I will stop the screen share now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Our Duty. You deserve a lot of accolade and respect for being an anonymous leader at the scale that you're leading. Well done. We all love you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Melanie, do you want to anchor this? And I'll go through Kellie-Lynne's slideshow. I know Mia's in the waiting room. And Melanie, you want to promote or talk about some of our FOI stuff and our little fundraiser I mentioned earlier on. That's where you're going to go. So Kellie-Lynne, I'm going to share the screen on your behalf. You just let me know how to advance the slides and when that's appropriate.
Okay.
Speaking of our fundraiser, that's the page that I posted earlier that Melanie's going to talk about in a moment or two. And I'm just getting, oh my. Kelly, you're still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I just got an error that said Zoom quit unexpectedly.
Don't send it, whatever you do.
Just exit off. Just hit the X.
No, don't do anything.
Don't do anything.
Everything's fine. Leave it as it is.
Am I still here?
I'm
They're
freaking
still
out.
here. Everybody's still here.
Okay, good.
Oh, that was
it's warm in here at the moment. It's still showing our participants are here. All right, I tried to start the slideshow. I'm going to try this again.
That's funny. Oh, that's beautiful.
Slideshow from beginning.
Yeah.
All right, we got
beautiful.
it. Okay.
Yes.
So Kellie-Lynne, you're working on a big project.
Yes, I am. founded Detrans Alliance Canada, and through that I connected with the Million Marches, and while I was at the Million Marches, I kept talking to people about this dream I had that somehow in Canada we needed to protect the category of sex as a legal category because it's slowly being erased by this concept they brought into the Charter of Rights and Freedoms called gender identity and expression. How's my volume?
Good.
Okay, excellent. So our mission statement. So we know that we're going to get hateful, harmful, hurtful. So we decided to just do up these documentations so that we knew as we're spreading this idea where we're coming from. So our mission, which should be the next slide, is to garner support in public and private sectors to halt the encroachment of gender identity on sex-based rights, resulting in sex being represented independent of gender identity, as they are separate categories in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. When the trans queer activists had gender identity created, they deliberately wanted it to be completely separate from sex. And their goal at the time was to be able to then later eliminate the category of sex. So our goal is to trigger provincial referendums across the country that preface, hopefully, a national referendum to prioritize sex-based rights over gender identity in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So we really want to bring this issue forward on the political landscape where politicians are having to talk about this issue. A summary of our position and recommendations. First, it has come to our attention that some provincial vital statistics services have changed their documentation to specifically state that the category of gender will be captured on birth certificates under the category of sex. This inappropriate conflation of these two categories has raised our concerns. Two, through the initiation of open dialogues with provinces and territories, we will request that all provinces and territories provide alternative methods of applying and tracking sex and gender identity separately, as they are recognized separately and were added to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms separately. Sex, as compared to race, is immutable, whereas gender identity, as compared to religion, may change throughout one's lifetime. Therefore, sex as a category, like race, must retain its historical significance and meaning on any provincial and federal documents. If there is a need to apply or track gender identities, this must be done separately, as in the case of religion, as it is a distinct category. Gender nonconformity, puberty, and freedom of expression preceded gender identity in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, are fundamental human rights and must be prioritized and respected throughout the process by which gender identity is applied and tracked by all provinces and territories. Infringement on the rights of non-believers by demanding compliance, forcing acknowledgement of the canons of gender identity is unacceptable. In addressing an individual's demands, one of the canons of a declaration of a gender identity is the mandatory participation of others in that identity. Gender identity is a subjective set of beliefs that should not require participation from others. It's the require there. Requiring others to violate their consciously held beliefs in order to participate in someone else's is contrary to the integrity of a free and just society. We are free to think our own thoughts. Well, at this time in Canada, we are still free. Speak our own minds, listen to the views of others, and express our opinions in creative ways, meaning we should not be mandated or coerced to participate in the gender identity of others, as it violates the freedom of conscience and religion of many Canadians. Sex is a recognized class in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms that was enshrined long before gender identity was added. Applying and tracking gender identity in a manner that diminishes or displaces sex as a category is sex discrimination, with which we disagree. Section 28 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms requires that the rights and freedoms guaranteed in the Charter be implemented without discrimination between the sexes. We assert that, notwithstanding anything in this summary, just as notwithstanding anything in this Charter, the rights and freedoms referred to in it are guaranteed equally to male and female persons. Gender identity is separate and newly added to the Charter. Therefore, sex, clearly, according to the Charter, is a prioritized category that must be recognized as such. So, in implementing this, we've got a letter. We didn't get this added to the slideshow, but we've got a letter to send off to the various provincial vital statistics organizations. Hopefully we can find people in each province who would be willing to send that forward. We're just basically saying that we've noticed that this change at the vital statistics level has happened. We find it concerning, and we'd like you to refrain from conflating the category of sex and gender and find a way to track those two categories in a completely separate manner. So, yeah.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Kellie-Lynne. And Melanie, we've got you on the floor, and while you're doing that, I'm going to do some administration and bring up Mia. So I'll let you take the floor, Melanie, and I'll do a little housekeeping while we do that. Oh, audio.
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Melanie Bennett, and I do a lot of things. I'm a co-host with Shannon, as you said, on the Canadian Gender Wars Report, which I've posted about profusely today. Please feel free to go have a look at that. But before I did that, I started off, when I learned about all these things, wanting to get involved. I actually worked with Our Duty Canada for a while, and I started doing a podcast channel with them. I've sort of moved on to other things since then, but at that time, I wanted to do something a little bit more practical. I wanted to find out a bit more information, and I decided to try FOI, so the Freedom of Information, because I understand that you can obtain lots of different kinds of information using freedom of information. And I was actually pretty successful the first time. Can I share screen?
Yep.
I'm going to see if I can. So I'm just going to go over this quickly. I'm not going to spend too much time. So if you can see this screen, which I believe you can, we actually posted about this on the Our Duty group page. And I investigated. So my local school board is the YRDSB, the York Region District School Board in the Greater Toronto Area. And that's where my child went to school. And I wanted to find out a bit more about gender ideology there. When I read their gender identity and expressions guidelines, which was quite ideological in its language. And so I wanted to know who wrote this. And there was no author on there. And so I put in FOI to look into the authors of this piece of policy. And I found out that they over several period, I can't remember exactly how many years, but they paid out nearly $24,000 for this guideline to be produced to basically the 519, which is an activist organization in Toronto. And they're really involved in pushing a lot of this gender ideology. They're involved with groups like EGAL. And in fact, the main author here, Dylan Bruxter, I think he used to work for EGAL. But it was really interesting because, I was able to see that they paid, let's just move this out of the way. So they paid, $6.5 grand for something called Race and Queerness, Deep Dive into Trans Affirming Practice, Sexuality and Gender for Primary Ages, another $6,500. Fostering queer and trans inclusive work environments, that was a bit less, $750, but you get the gist. So I was really lucky the first time that I did an FOI. I was able to receive quite a lot of interesting information from that, and then we posted it on Our Duty Canada. Now, I haven't continued doing FOIs, and the point is not to necessarily go on about my FOI, but just to say that you can be quite successful with something that cost me $5 plus another $75 for some additional time that they needed to allocate to produce this information. But the point is that part of our groups have been working on much deeper FOIs that contain much more information. They've cost a lot more money. So they're looking, I can't go into the details now. Hopefully we'll have something together at some point that we can share with the public. But right now we have to keep it a little bit quiet, but they've had to pay we've had to pay more for that one. And so right now, this is why we have this transparency and accountability drive to raise money to pay the extra fees for this particular FOI. But it's not just for this particular FOI. It's also, for example, if you want to do FOIs, if you want to find out information, one of the common things is that they'll come back to you and say, well, it's going to cost you an extra $300, or it's going to cost you an extra $800 or some prohibitive fee. So this is, I didn't have this problem, but apparently this is quite common for many people who have tried to do FOIs. And so part of the drive is also to have a fund within the PRCOC that people can contact us and say, listen, we've tried to do this FOI and we've come across this barrier. Can we apply to use some of your funding? So if you feel inclined to donate to this fund, we can also provide funds to other people who may be coming across some difficulties in their own searches, because we know that there are people all over the country doing it. But we also would like to encourage any one of you to find out what you like. And incidentally, yesterday, right before the summit yesterday, I received an anonymous submission. Well, it's not quite anonymous. It has to be anonymous for you. But someone sent me an FOI to look at, and it was packed full of information. So you can get quite a lot of information from some of these if you pose your questions cleverly enough. And I would advise one question per FOI. So do multiple if you have a big query. But this one, I think it's going to take some time to go through, and we pass it on to some of our colleagues to have a look at. But they're very, very effective. So if you don't know what you can do and you're interested in maybe looking at your local school board or your district or something like that, I would advise you have a go. It can take some time to come back, and it can cost a bit of money, which we might be able to help with. But that is an effective starting point or a continuation point. That's it. That is it from me.
So please click on that link through the PRCOC website. You can set up a donation, a small donation to run monthly. Let's say it's $10 or $15, or if you have the capacity to support some of these efforts, another donation is greatly appreciated. One of the other success stories that we had with FOI was Emily Duggan. After September 20th, Marches last year, she used the FOI to find out what the school absence rates were. And we saw that she got the data for across the entire province, gave us a lot of insight into how effective the student part of that protest was. All this is important work, and Mia is here.
I'll just add one more thing, because someone asked in the chat. I'll send you the actual link, but this is on the prcoc.ca website. If you go to, there's a section on donating or contributing. So it'll be on the PRCOC website. And when I drop down, I'll share the link. But yeah, please donate.